Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 323. Authority is evidenced in moments, not titles. For those who've been in my world for a while now, you'll know that I feel very strongly that being an expert and an authority are worlds apart. Yet I'm aware that it may appear simple semantics. I can assure you from an embodied perspective that whilst there is clearly some truth in this, the reality is that it is way, way more than semantics. I also don't buy the oft-quoted influencer line that to be an expert you just need to be the one who knows the most in the room. Stuff and nonsense, as my very level-headed dad would have said. If you've fallen for that, you're wading through the territory of the deluded and rubbing shoulders with the charlatans. Now, I'm not saying that all influencers are charlatans, well, not quite, anyway. And this will be a bit of a rant, so steady the buffs. Just like those who badge themselves as transformational coaches, who decides? You can call me an influencer if I have influenced you, and you can call me a transformational coach if you have transformed as a result of us working together. I don't believe that these are my labels to claim, but my clients' descriptors to use about me. I'm wound up now because I've just realised that what really gets my goat is that self-proclaimed influencers often have little real expertise. There, I said it. Judgy rant over. Now I've got that off my chest, thank you, I would like to take a moment to mention why I chose the word evidenced in the title of this episode. I toyed with claimed or presents, but neither felt right because I've recognised that we evidence our authority through our words, attitude and behaviour. I demonstrate it rather than flash it around like a gold medal. It's not mine to claim, it's mine to earn and evidence. Here's one thing that has bubbled up for me around this topic though. Are labels, and in this case the expert label, even necessary? And if it is, who does it benefit? For my clients and fellow introverts who have had their confidence knocked by being overtaken by less competent individuals, I think it matters in their own mind for sure. It matters in terms of them believing that they bring value to the table and have wisdom to share. I've noticed that it often also matters to their confidence and their self-esteem. I do wonder, though, if the expert label is largely just ego defence, excluding, of course, the expert witnesses who present in courts of law. The few I know have really earned their title. Thinking of my introverted colleagues, I can't imagine any of them, or my clients, parading their authority like the popular kids flashed their prefect badge at school. And evidencing authority and expertise is wildly different from flashing it around, flaunting it unnecessarily, or waving it in front of people's faces. In fact, part of the work my clients and I do together is helping them really appreciate where their skills, talents and expertise add value, together with how they can talk about them authentically. You might be thinking, hang on there one tiny moment, Jo. You've just mentioned expertise, but have already knocked the idea of being an expert, saying it's ego defence. So how do you square that circle? Great question, and I can see how this is probably where the influencer perspective of I'm the expert because I know the most in the room springs from. So let me be clear. In my mind, having expertise is not the same as being an expert. I know. Confusing, isn't it? So stay with me as I untangle that particularly knotty conundrum and share why I believe there is a difference. I've come to love, acknowledge and value that we all have some kind of expertise. It's the things that we are really good at, which can be incredibly varied, just as humans are. It might be parenting difficult souls, or maintaining a single-figure golf handicap, or knitting intricate Fair Isle patterns. It might be how you lead a dysfunctional team to high performance, or how you stay motivated when all around you is changing beyond recognition, or how you talk someone down after a challenging client meeting. Maybe spend a moment after this episode finishes thinking about where your expertise lies. I have pockets of professional expertise developed through studying for qualifications, through practical application, and through ongoing experience. I also have expertise in other non-professional areas, mostly developed through applied learning, like my passion for crafting, and all of it is important to me in how I live my life and what I choose to spend my time on. Is it important that everyone knows that, though? Nuh-uh. But here's what I find really interesting, and have mentioned in previous episodes. Having expertise is really just possessing knowledge coupled with experience over time. What we choose to do with that and how we choose to share it demonstrates or evidences our authority. And this is potentially a hugely important message for those introverts who prefer to listen or don't feel confident enough to contribute, which means they're in danger of hiding their light under a bushel. Tough love incoming. Ready? Sitting in a room with relevant knowledge but not sharing it because you don't like to put yourself in the spotlight or you fear it will come across as a bit showy-offy is frankly irresponsible, especially if the group needed that information to progress a matter. When people do that, it's often a power play or perceived as such, which serves no one and damages the knowledge holder's personal brand. And if you want to know what your personal brand is, find out what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's a great indication. And the other thing to consider is that if you don't evidence your expertise in the moment, someone else, often with less expertise, will try to. Many will have no qualms about elbowing their way in and top-trumping you. They may even use your ideas and words, claiming them as their own. That's when you know it's time to claim and articulate your expertise. I get that it can be a bit scary if you happen to be the most junior person in the room, especially one who is rarely listened to. I remember being the new girl in a training consultancy, even though I'd lots of hard-won experience in industry. They were pulling together a team to craft a bid document for a training contract with BT, but didn't invite me into the team. With my background as a BT engineer and 19 years of employment, some of which was in learning and development, I had plenty that I could contribute that would have added value, but the old guard didn't want to open the group. So I simply asked how they might make best use of my experience and contacts. Strangely, I was welcomed warmly after that. So sharing appropriately is one of the ways to overcome a lack of seniority. All it takes is to remember that those with longer service may not know more than you do. And as nice as it might be, this is not about waiting for an invitation to contribute. People don't necessarily know who has what knowledge, so offering can be a really authentic way to make a great name for yourself. This is also a good moment to remind you that experience is not necessarily the same as expertise. If my experience has been 15 years of repeating the same thing, it's highly unlikely that I have gained or honed my expertise. It's far more likely that I am stuck in an old and potentially outdated model of how things were, which may not be relevant now. So please don't automatically be intimidated by those with impressive job titles, more seniority, or length of service. It's one of the reasons I'm a passionate lifelong learner. I'd hate to be stuck in my ways. As I demonstrated in my earlier example, one of the techniques I started using earlier in my career was to offer that I have some knowledge that may be helpful. I would sometimes quite literally use the words, "I have some information on this that might be useful. Is now a good time to share that?" This really helped me to find my voice in a room of senior people. What I learned not to do was start my offer by apologising, something I've witnessed a lot of others do. This is when people start by saying something like, "This may be irrelevant, but," or "You probably already know this, but." It's a bad habit and it undermines your authority instantly. And just like any habit, it can be unlearned and replaced by another, more effective one once you recognise it. My rule of thumb is that if I'm tempted to add a but after what I'm about to say, I need to reposition it. Try that and you'll be surprised at the difference it makes to your confidence and the way your contribution lands. There is another personal brand damaging practice that happens a lot, which is to share from a know-it-all perspective, assuming no one else knows what you know. That happens a lot to women in business and industry with all of the mansplaining that goes on. And if we dare to raise awareness of that, which I do, we usually face some ruffled feathers, huffing and uncomfortable shuffling. So we don't want to invite similar responses by falling into our version of that know-it-all trap. How do we avoid that? One way is to ask a simple question like, what might we be missing here? Or what knowledge is already in the room? Most groups find any of those facilitative questions from wherever they come pretty useful. So it's time to get out of our own way on this one. Time to recognise that being an authority is the right and responsibility of any and all of us who have relevant knowledge that they can share for the greater good. I strongly suggest that you take time and maybe do an audit before any of those big meetings about the depth of your knowledge so you're ready to offer, share and evidence your quiet but undeniable authority when appropriate. After all, knowledge has little value if you're the only one who knows because it stays in your head. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.